My name is Luke Hammond, and if I'm being honest, I never wanted to compete with my brother. I just wanted to be his equal. But ever since we were kids, Wes had this way of turning everything into a scoreboard. Grades, sports, girls, respect from Dad. He always had the upper hand, and he made sure I never forgot it. Growing up in a small Texas town, our father was a Vietnam vet, hard as iron and twice as cold. The kind of man who believed crying was weakness and second place meant you didn't try hard enough. Wes soaked it up like motor oil. Me? I kept my head down and hoped he'd forget I existed. The day Wes enlisted in the Army, my dad shook his hand, like he'd just watched his son win the Super Bowl. The proudest I'd ever seen him. That same night, I walked into the kitchen and said I was thinking about joining too. My mother froze. Wes laughed out loud. "You? You'd wash out in a week, Luke," he said. "You cry when you get a splinter." Dad didn't even look up from his paper. That laugh, it stuck with me, burned in my gut like cheap whiskey. I didn't sleep that night. I just stared at the ceiling, fists clenched, heart pounding. I didn't want to join the Army to prove anything, but after that moment, I needed to. Basic training hit me like a freight train. I won't lie. Wes was right about one thing. I did struggle. The first week, I puked during every morning run. I couldn't do more than 5 push-ups without shaking like a leaf. My drill sergeant, a mountain of a man with a voice like gravel in a blender, called me Limpy Luke, but I didn't quit. That laugh was still ringing in my ears every time I dropped to the ground. Every time my boots blistered. Every time I crawled under barbed wire with my face in the mud, I'd repeat in my head, "He laughed. He laughed. He laughed." 10 weeks later, I stood at attention with my unit, wearing the same uniform my brother did. My body had changed, sure, but it was my mindset that transformed. And yet, when I called home to say I made it, all Dad said was, "Well, Wes made it with honors." Wes had been fast-tracked, ROTC, officer school, already commanding a platoon. Me? I was still scrubbing floors in the motor pool, trying to earn respect one grease stain at a time. Our paths didn't cross again until a year later. We were both deployed overseas to the same forward base in Kuwait, a fluke of military logistics. The first time I saw him on base, he was in full officer gear, clean, confident, surrounded by men who saluted as he passed. Me? I was hauling a busted generator off a flatbed truck, sweat soaking through my undershirt. Wes stopped, looked at me and smirked. Well, you're still in, huh?" I forced a nod. "Still standing," he chuckled. "Let me know if you need help with those tools. Wouldn't want you to chip a nail." His buddies laughed. That moment, it was just like high school all over again. Like nothing I had done mattered. But what none of them knew was, I'd been studying. Hard. I had passed every logistics course I could get my hands on. I wasn't just lifting heavy stuff. I was managing supply lines, keeping battalions running. Quiet work, but essential. And soon, I'd be the reason his own men would eat, drive, and get patched up in time. 2 weeks after that awkward encounter on base, I was elbow deep in a busted Humvee transmission when the sergeant major walked into the motor pool holding a clipboard and a frown. "Hammond!" he barked. I wiped my hands on a rag and jogged over. "Yes, Sergeant Major, you're being reassigned." My gut twisted. Reassigned? To where? I thought I'd messed up. Effective immediately, you're reporting to the Tactical Logistics Unit. They need someone who understands field movement, fuel distribution, and frontline resupply coordination. I blinked. "Sir, that's a Tier 3 command," he grunted. You passed every logistics cert we threw at you. They want someone with real experience, not just classroom theory." He leaned in. "Truth is, you've been working harder than anyone here." Word got around. I didn't know what to say, except, "Thank you, sir." I packed up my duffel, grabbed my notes and manuals, and reported to my new post the next day. And that's when the universe played its twisted hand. The officer in charge of the combat unit I was now supporting was Captain Wesley Hammond, my brother. His eyes nearly popped out of his head when I walked into the briefing room with the resupply manifests. "What the hell are you doing here?" he hissed. I straightened my back. "I'm your logistics lead now. All resupply, route planning, fuel flow, rations comes through me," he scoffed. "Since when did you become an expert in anything?" His commander, a full-bird colonel standing nearby, stepped in before I could answer. "That man," he said, pointing at me, "just solved a supply chain problem that's been dogging this unit for 6 months. Without him, your next 3 convoys don't move." The room went silent. Wes's jaw clenched. He didn't say a word, not in front of the colonel. The next week was a blur. I coordinated fuel drops, secured water shipments, and rerouted food convoys around dangerous zones. Every decision had lives attached to it. Wes's unit was running smoother than ever. His men were eating hot meals on time. Vehicles had clean parts. Medics had the kits they needed. Still, he didn't thank me, but I could see it in his eyes. He knew. The same limp-wristed little brother, who he said would wash out in a week, was the one keeping his unit alive. Then came the day that changed everything. We got word of an urgent humanitarian evac, an Allied village trapped between retreating enemy lines. A convoy had to go in fast. Dangerous territory, no air cover, and only one shot. Wes volunteered his platoon to lead the evac, but the convoy couldn't go unless I greenlit the route. I spent 36 straight hours working on the plan, analyzing terrain, fueling strategy, medical loadouts. I even had a backup route in case things went sideways. Wes didn't look at me during the final briefing, but he nodded. That was all I needed. They rolled out at dawn. The mission was a success. They brought back over 60 civilians, women, children, elderly, without a single casualty. The colonel gathered us the next morning for a formal commendation. He stepped forward, pinned a service ribbon to my chest, and said words I'll never forget. "Logistics wins wars, and this soldier just proved it." He turned to Wes. "Captain Hammond, you should thank your brother." The whole room looked at Wes. For the first time in his life, my brother saluted me. You'd think being saluted by your own brother, after years of being his punching bag, would feel like victory. And yeah, for a split second it did. But after the ceremony, after the clapping stopped and the medals were pinned, Wes walked right past me without saying a word. No handshake, no good job, no, you were right. Just a blank stare, and then he was gone. I didn't expect an apology, but I guess part of me hoped we'd finally stand on level ground, that we'd walk out of that tent as equals. Instead, I was left standing there alone, with a citation in my hand and a lump in my throat. I went back to my bunk and sat in silence. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It hadn't been for a long time. I didn't need to beat him. I just wanted acknowledgement. A real one. Not from the military, not from the colonel, from him. The brother who used to wrestle me to the ground and say I'd never be a man. The one who told our parents I'd be flipping burgers while he wore stars on his shoulder. All those memories were still there, and no medal could erase them. The next day, I was working late in the mobile comms trailer, logging convoy inventory, when the sat phone rang. "Hammond," I answered. It was my dad. His voice was stiff, formal, almost like he was reading off a script. "I saw the write-up," he said, "about the mission. They said you led logistics for the evac." I sat up straight. "Yes, sir." He paused. long enough that I thought the call had dropped. Then he said something I hadn't heard from him in my entire life. I was wrong about you. I didn't know what to say. My throat tightened. I just held the phone. He cleared his throat. Wes called me, told me you saved his unit. His exact words were, "He's the reason I came home alive." Now I really didn't know what to say. Then came the sentence that stopped my heart. I told everyone my oldest son was the soldier, but I was looking at the wrong one. I hung up that call and sat there in stunned silence. For the first time, my father saw me, not as the backup son, not as the disappointment, but as a man who had made his own way. That phone call meant more than the ribbon, more than the salute. Because it wasn't about military rank anymore. It was about reclaiming my identity, on my terms. Later that week, I passed Wes outside the mess tent. He was sitting alone, drinking coffee, eyes locked on the desert horizon. As I walked by, I nodded. He looked up and said, "Hey," that was it. No more insults, no more smirks, just, "Hey," and somehow, it meant more than all the shouting matches we'd ever had. Weeks passed. Orders came down. Our deployment was ending. Wes left a day earlier than me. He dropped by my tent the morning he shipped out. For the first time ever, he reached out his hand. I shook it. "Take care of yourself," he said. "You too, Captain." He gave a small smile. "Maybe next time you'll outrank me," I chuckled. Wouldn't that be something? We both knew that might never happen. But in that moment, we weren't rivals. We were brothers again. Older, weathered, finally equal. Coming back home after deployment is strange. The streets are the same. The trees, the air, the hum of the old gas station on Route 17. It's all familiar, but you're not. I stepped off the Greyhound bus with just one duffel, a tight back, and a head full of memories I wasn't ready to unpack. Nobody was there to greet me. No banners, no welcome committee. Just me, a dusty curb, and my own boots on the pavement. That was fine. I didn't need a crowd. I didn't even call ahead. I just walked. Our town was small enough that news traveled faster than cell signals. And apparently, my story had gotten back before I did. By the time I reached the diner, Mabel's, the same place Wes and I used to sneak into after football games, I noticed something odd. People were staring, not in a bad way, but with that subtle double-take kind of stare, like they recognized me but weren't sure how. Then I saw the wall. Mabel had a new corkboard next to the counter. It was titled, "Hometown Heroes." Right in the center was a printed photo of me in uniform, taken during the commendation ceremony overseas. The colonel was pinning the ribbon. Wes was in the background, blurred, saluting. Underneath the photo, someone had written, "See Staff Sergeant Luke Hammond, quiet valor, logistics that saved lives." I just stood there. Mabel came around the counter, hands on her hips. "Took you long enough to stop by." I smiled. "Didn't think anyone remembered me." She scoffed. "Child, your brother used to be the name on everyone's lips. Now, people talk about you." Later that afternoon, I walked up the long gravel driveway to my parents' house. Same creaky porch. Same sun-faded flag flapping above the garage. Dad was on the front steps, cleaning a rifle he hadn't fired in years. It wasn't loaded. He just liked the routine. He didn't stand up when he saw me, just nodded and said, "You came back." "I always do," I replied. He motioned for me to sit. I did. There was a long silence between us. Not awkward, just heavy. Then he said, "Your brother told me what happened. Said you held that unit together. That without you, half those boys wouldn't have made it." I nodded slowly. "He also said he saluted you. First time in his life he felt like he was behind you instead of ahead." I looked over. "He say that?" "He did." Dad paused. "You know, for years I thought being a soldier meant leading from the front, being the loudest, the strongest. But maybe, just maybe, it means something quieter. He looked me in the eye. You proved me wrong, son. I didn't need a parade, or even an "I'm proud of you." That sentence, that you proved me wrong, was enough. That night, Mom cooked a real meal. Meatloaf, mashed potatoes. Same as when we were kids. After dinner, I went out to the backyard and stared up at the stars. The same ones I used to look at from my cot in Kuwait. But they felt different now, closer. I realized something. It wasn't about my brother anymore, or even my dad. It was about me. I'd walked my own path, took the long road, and somewhere along the way, I became the man I was meant to be. A few months after I got home, I was back at my old mechanic job. Civilian life was quiet, almost too quiet. No radio calls, no convoy checklists, just oil changes and tire rotations, until I got a letter, official, stamped, from the Department of the Army. You are invited to appear before the Distinguished Service Review Board in Washington, D.C., regarding the October evac operation under Command Unit 81. My first reaction? They must have made a mistake. That kind of recognition? That was for heroes with medals, not motor pool sergeants who mapped fuel routes in a dusty tent. But the second page made my jaw drop. So Captain Wesley Hammond will also be attending. His account has cited your leadership as critical to mission success. Wes had requested I be recognized. I sat on my couch for hours holding that letter. The brother who used to roll his eyes when I walked into a room had vouched for me. I flew to D.C. 2 weeks later. First time I'd worn my uniform since the ceremony overseas. It still fit like a second skin, carrying the weight of everything I'd earned. The board was made up of 4 officers, 2 civilians, and 1 war-hardened general with deep creases in his face and stars on his collar. Wes was already seated. He stood when I walked in, and to my surprise, he offered me the chair next to him. They asked us everything. Who planned the secondary fuel route? Who advised the medics to rotate cooling packs mid-trip? Who made the decision to delay departure by 30 minutes to avoid drone-sighted zones? Wes answered them all with one word. Luke. I told the board I was just doing my job, but Wes cut in. Sir, with respect, most logistics officers wouldn't have risked pushing an alternate evac path with those odds. He didn't just do a job. He saved 60 lives, including mine. That moment, I'll never forget it. My older brother, in full uniform, speaking not as my sibling, but as a soldier who owed me his life. After the session, we stepped outside into the crisp winter air. Wes lit a cigarette, something he only did when he was nervous. He looked over at me. You remember when I told you you'd wash out in a week? Vividly, I said. He exhaled smoke and shook his head. Dumbest thing I ever said. He paused. Second dumbest was thinking I had to beat you to be somebody. I didn't say anything. I let the silence sit there. Then he looked at me, eyes clearer than I'd ever seen them. You didn't beat me, Luke. You became someone I want to be. That night, we got dinner in the city. Just 2 brothers. No ranks, no rivalry. We laughed about basic training, about Dad's weird rules, about how life had spun us in opposite directions, only to land us at the same table. Weeks later, I got another letter. Meritorious Service Medal, signed, approved, commended. Not because I was loud, not because I forced anyone to see me, but because I showed up, day after day, when no one thought I could. 6 months after DC, I got a call from a nonprofit that hosted veteran outreach programs across the country. They wanted me to speak at a gathering in Dallas, a panel on quiet leadership in combat support roles. My first instinct? Say no. I wasn't a public speaker. I didn't command platoons. I wasn't decorated like Wes or the guys with valor citations. But the woman on the phone said something that stuck. You were the difference between survival and silence for dozens of families. That voice matters. So I packed my one good suit and made the trip. The event wasn't flashy, just a local VFW hall, some chairs, flags on the wall, and a few rows of veterans, families, and high school ROTC kids. I stepped onto the stage with trembling hands and a dry mouth. Then I took a breath and told my story. No drama, no bitterness, just the truth. How I was always the quiet brother. How I was laughed at, underestimated, overlooked. How I chose to serve anyway. And how, in the end, doing the job well, not loudly, changed everything. After the panel, a man in his 60s approached me. Heavy boots, oil-stained jacket, and eyes that looked like they'd seen too many things too young. He didn't introduce himself, just reached into his coat pocket and handed me a folded photo. It was his son, in uniform, smiling beside a little girl. I don't know you, he said, but I know your name. My boy was in that convoy you cleared the path for. You never met him, but because of you, he came home. And now that little girl still has her dad. I didn't know what to say. My throat closed. All I could manage was, "Thank you." He shook his head. "No, son. Thank you. The loud ones get remembered, but it's the quiet ones who hold everything together." That moment stuck with me more than any medal, because for the first time, I realized something. My story wasn't just about proving my brother wrong. It was about proving to myself and to the world that being underestimated doesn't mean being unworthy. These days, Wes and I talk every week. He sends me photos of his new baby girl. I send him fishing updates. We joke about who's older and slower. The rivalry? It's gone. Replaced by respect and a bond built through fire and time. My dad still won't say the words, "I'm proud," outright. But every time I visit, he makes sure the neighbors know. That's my son, the one the Army wrote up in stars and stripes. And that's enough. I don't wear my medals often, but when I do, I wear them for the people who got overlooked. The quiet fighters, the steady workers, the ones who never needed a stage to leave a legacy. If this story reminded you of someone who quietly made all the difference, share it with them. And if you've ever been underestimated, just know, your story's not over yet. Subscribe for more true stories of redemption, respect, and real-life heroes. And drop a comment. Have you ever been the quiet one who proved everyone wrong? I used to think proving someone wrong would feel like fireworks. That the day my brother saluted me, it would erase every insult, every time he laughed when I failed, every moment I was made to feel small. But the truth is, when that moment came, it didn't explode. It settled. Quiet. Like a deep breath I'd been holding for 20 years. Finally let go. After the dust settled, I realized something even bigger. The real victory wasn't the salute. It was who I became along the way. Lesson number 1. Quiet work matters more than flashy words. I didn't have the highest rank. I didn't win medals for heroics in a firefight. But I kept units moving, fuel flowing, lives protected, every day without applause. And that's something I think a lot of us, especially veterans, understand. In every unit, there are folks who shine on the field. But there are also those who stay behind the scenes, doing the unglamorous jobs. Mechanics, clerks, supply techs, RTOs, those jobs save lives, but don't always get headlines. I've come to believe this. Legacy isn't built in a single moment. It's built in consistency, in reliability, in quiet duty. Lesson number 2. Not all respect comes loudly. For years, I craved my father's approval, and even more than that, I wanted my brother's respect. But I didn't get it by fighting louder or begging for it. I got it by walking my path, day after day, doing the right thing even when no one was watching. Eventually, they saw. You don't always need to demand recognition. Sometimes, if you stay true long enough, it finds its way to you. Lesson number 3, your value isn't measured by comparison. Wes was taller, sharper, the golden boy, the natural leader. For a long time, I let that comparison destroy my self-worth. But here's what I learned the hard way. You can't win a race you were never meant to run. The minute I stopped trying to beat him and started trying to be myself, everything changed. I wasn't built for the spotlight. I was built to hold things together. And that's its own kind of power. A personal moment that hit me. A few months after I received that service medal, I got a letter in the mail. It was from a young soldier in Colorado, someone I'd never met. He wrote, "My older brother always made me feel small. I watched your story online. I just wanted to say, it gave me hope. You made me believe I don't have to shout to matter." I sat at my kitchen table for an hour after reading that, because I remembered how desperate I had once been to hear that same thing from someone. Turns out, now I was that someone for someone else, and that might be the greatest honor of all. For the quiet fighters out there. If you're reading this or listening to my story, and you've been the quiet one, the one who kept the house running while others took the credit, the one who showed up early, stayed late, but got passed over, the one who was laughed at by family, friends, or bosses who didn't think you had it in you, this is what I'll tell you. You don't need to shout. You don't need to rage. You don't need to prove them wrong in the way they expect. You just need to stay. Stay consistent. Stay true. Stay honorable. And one day, when the smoke clears, they'll look around, and you'll be the one still standing. That's not revenge. That's legacy. If you've ever felt like the quiet one in your family or team, let me know in the comments. What moment made you finally realize your worth? And if you're still walking that quiet road, keep going. You're not alone. Subscribe for more real stories like this. No drama, no noise. Just real strength, one step at a time.